Let's set up a race. Achilles, the fastest warrior in ancient Greece, against a tortoise. To keep things interesting, he gets a 100-meter head start. We know exactly how this ends. The starting gun fires, and Achilles immediately blows past the tortoise in mere seconds. But Zeno of Elea proposed that if you look at the race through the lens of pure logic, Achilles never actually wins. In fact, he can't even reach his opponent. Here is the trap. By the time Achilles runs those first 100 meters, the tortoise has kept moving. It has crawled, say, 10 meters further down the track. Achilles has closed the initial gap, but a new one has appeared. Achilles sprints that next 10 meters. In that brief time, the tortoise creeps forward 1 meter. Achilles covers that meter, but the tortoise is 10 centimeters ahead. Every single time Achilles reaches where the tortoise was, the tortoise has moved a tiny bit further. To Zeno, this meant motion was an illusion. His logic dictates that to reach any destination, you must cross an infinite number of halfway points. Because you can never finish an infinite sequence, you can never truly arrive. You likely aren't racing many reptiles, but the geometry of this race shows up in our daily lives all the time. It's the invisible barrier that appears whenever we try to start a major project. We start with a massive goal. We draw up routines and build color-coded tracking spreadsheets. We feel the rush of productivity before we've even taken a single physical step toward the finish line. Then the actual work begins. The first few days feel like huge leaps forward, but as the end approaches, the remaining tasks seem to multiply. The final 10% of the project starts to feel as dense and demanding as the first 90%. This is where we drop the project. The work begins to feel like an endless series of microscopic, tedious hurdles. The finish line is visible, but the remaining effort feels like it's splintering into infinity. Our unfinished goals often mirror the logic of that race. We don't stall because the distance is too great, but because the remaining steps feel like they are subdividing. We lose our momentum to the perceived density of the gap. But we do finish things. We cross rooms, we overtake slower runners. So how do we actually complete a journey that is made of an infinite number of divisions? The solution is an infinite geometric series. Look at the top row, 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/8, carrying on forever. Instead of searching for the final step, look at the total sum. The endlessly shrinking fractions resolve into a perfectly finite, solid number. This math resolves the race. Zeno was right that those infinite divisions exist, but they occupy a space that has a definitive, crossable limit. The steps are infinite, but the distance is not. While math tames the paradox, physics asks if the physical universe ever actually behaves like Zeno's thought experiment. Does motion ever truly freeze? To find out, a team of physicists at Cornell University trapped 1 billion rubidium atoms inside a vacuum chamber and cooled them to 1 billionth of a degree above absolute zero. At these temperatures, the atoms should stay in an orderly lattice. However, quantum mechanics allows them to tunnel, jumping from one spot in the grid to another, even without the energy to move. The researchers used a laser to observe these jumps, but they discovered that the more frequently they measured the atoms, the less they moved. By observing the system constantly, they were able to suppress the tunneling entirely, effectively freezing the atoms in place. Physicists named this phenomenon the quantum Zeno effect, in honor of the ancient philosopher's logic. Zeno wasn't trying to predict quantum physics, but his work highlighted a real tension that science eventually uncovered. That under certain conditions, if you fix your gaze on the now too intensely, movement loses the room it needs to happen. Let's step away from the atoms and go back to the starting line of the foot race. We are left with two truths. Zeno's logic of an infinitely dividing space is a real property of the universe. Yet forward motion in time is undeniably real. The gun fires, Achilles sprints. He eats up the 100 meters, the 10 meters, the 1 meter. He doesn't get trapped by the logic, he simply runs through it. He passes the tortoise and crosses the finish line. Think about the scale of that achievement. To win that race, or even to take a single step, Achilles had to successfully complete an infinite number of movements in a finite amount of time. The next time you feel stuck on a project or paralyzed by how the torque is left, remember that you are built to do this. Every time you finish a task or walk across a room, you are effortlessly conquering infinity. The gap is real, but it is always traversable.